Sometimes we only need one person to change our life, our business, our results.
You grow or die. It's a statement.
What is the secret to this?
If you don't make irresistible offers, what are you making? Irresistible offers.
How to get rich. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today. It's the first time we're talking here in our podcast. We are very excited to share some good news, some good content, some good business models, some good advices to Brazilians here. I'm very excited. And what about you, Jay?
I'm thrilled, and you've set a very high bar for me. I hope I can deliver on your expectation. But yeah, I mean, I am really intrigued and I'm thrilled. I think you're in a country that has a very dynamic entrepreneurial and business force. And I think that it's a great privilege to try to add some clarity that will help anyone basically gain a lot more out of whatever they're doing and whoever they're doing it with.
Thank you so much. And Jay, before we start here, you've coached some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the US and maybe in the world, maybe on the way we view things. But can you tell us a bit more about the people you helped before we start asking some questions here?
Early in my career, I helped what became the most dominant consumer product in the arthritis field. It's called Icy Hot. And we took it from a very tiny business to a monster-sized business. And now it's the dominant temporary relief-giving product in its category all over North America. I did Entrepreneur Magazine when no one knew the word entrepreneur. The word meant nothing to anybody. And I'm going to show you my age, but we had to send out communications that literally had our Webster's dictionary, not just the definition, but the phonetic way to pronunciate it. Because back then, nobody ever heard the name, knew what it meant, knew how to even say it. And I grew that very large. Then I got into the financial newsletter business, which you probably can relate to. I was involved with the top 40 or 50 financial newsletters in the very beginnings when they were realizing the impact they could have and also the profitability they could have. A company you may or may not be familiar with, Agora, which is worldwide in many billions of dollars. I helped the owner when he had only one newsletter, and his partner was a protege of mine. Since then, I've helped Tony Robbins, I've helped Brian Tracy, I've helped one of the top hedge fund guys. I've helped the number one candy company in China, the number one driving school in Japan, the number one cosmetic surgery group in Japan with 80 or 90 different offices. I've helped, I think, 300 Inc. magazine Entrepreneur of the Year, fastest growing companies. A lot of, and I'm saying it just, I've helped Success Magazine. I've helped 300 top experts on a worldwide basis. And I've been able to impact business owners, leading edge business owners in over 1,000 industries. But I will say that sounds impressive, but I've been doing it a long time. And I've had the very great fortune, Thiago, of traveling 80 or 90 times around the world. I used to do $25,000 programs in Japan, China, Singapore, Malaysia, UK. And I did that for many years when I was younger. So now I work almost always with clients. But yeah, I've had a lot of impact, and I'm pleased that I've gotten into the world of business growth early in the game, but I've also been privileged to be able to look at it from many areas, elements, and impact points that most others don't even understand.
Wow, that's some good, impressive numbers and results. And you talked about Agora. I didn't know you helped Agora. Agora has some stakes in some Brazilian companies that sells a lot, and that's very interesting to know about you, to know this from you. And you mentioned some good names, very important people like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, and all of those guys. And for you, it's a reality. You talk to all of them as they're your friends. But when I see entrepreneurs, sometimes we only need one person to change our life, our business, our results. But do you have some advice on the networking side of it?
Absolutely.
Because you started from scratch,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No. I've got very strong because I've done uh, over $1 billion of revenue growth just using strategic alliances, joint ventures, power partnering, co-branding, uh, getting my client set up as the recommended provider, referral arrangements. And anytime, I mean, this is we call this a default approach. I mean, it's one of the primary things I recommend always. Rather than try to grow a business conventionally, Thiago, which is nothing wrong with that. And I can give you in numerous ways to make whatever you're doing, selling, marketing, lead generating, conversion, franchisee, distribution channels. Rather than doing that, the first thing I always say is who already has the trust, the credibility, and the direct access to the same buying market that you want, is not competitive, and that is in a position to either partner with you, recommend you, introduce you. Let me give you a simple explanation. Years and years ago, I had a client that was a gold broker. They sold gold bullion, silver bullion, and some collectibles. And all their competitors are running ads and paid ads in the financial newsletters or newspapers, Wall Street Journal, things like that, Forbes. I don't know what the newspapers are there, but on the business and the investment publications. But the truth was the people that most wanted to invest in gold were the subscribers to all these newsletters. They tended to be more, we call it free market and hard money oriented. They liked hard assets like gold, silver, real estate. And everyone else was running in the magazines and the newspapers trying to find a few people out of all the many people reading. It was very inefficient and very costly. I went to 30 different newsletters, and I made my brokerage company the recommended provider to their subscribers. And in less than a year, we were doing $500 million. And this is many years ago. I used to be, when I was younger, I was in the seminar business big time. We did this is pretty significant because I haven't done it for over 10 years. We did $250 million of seminars and high-end home study trainings over about a 3-year period. And 98% of that came from me structuring partnership deals, revenue sharing deals, endorsement deals with the Tony Robbins, the entrepreneur magazines, the financial newsletters, people like you. I mean, in the United States, even the magazines and Success Magazine, In-Flight in the airlines, every seminar company, everyone selling business books to entrepreneurs. I had more partners, and I wasn't paying for wasteful advertising. I was only paying for results, and it was on a minor share. And we grew very fast, but what else we had, they gave the full force of their credibility and their reputation to me. So I got instant credibility, and I was able to catapult above a lot of other people who'd been trying to do it for years and years. But I was able to come into the market and in 1 year, over a 3-year period, do $250 million, $250 million, and only pay a fraction of the revenue out of results to those endorsers. But I got newsletters, I got Tony, I got a bunch of people like Tony, all telling their audiences, their subscribers, their investors that Jay Abraham was the best person they could trust. And that credibility instantly gave me credibility. And I shortened all the timeline normally necessary to get trust, all the timeline normally necessary to go from a lead to a conversion to a modest sale. The first thing we sold back then was $15,000 and then $20,000 and then $25,000 direct. You can cut through all of those levels when you have that kind of credibility instantly assigned to you.
Mhm. That's very interesting because I know a lot of people that grew a lot and then got a lot of credibility, but some of them lost their credibility. And you are in the business for some decades now, and the simple but important question I want to make to you is how to not lose credibility in the long term. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of the people you knew that reached huge successes stayed in the way, fell behind, and you were there for a long time, a lot of decades teaching, mentoring. What is the secret to this?
And you're asking really good questions. There's a multitude of secrets. The first one, I'm going to tell a quick a story from my own life. When I was very young, adult, I was too talented for my maturity, and I could have gone my career path could have gone one of two ways: the high end way or the dark side way. And a mentor of mine took me aside when I was about 23 and said something I'll never forget. I hope it translates to Portuguese. He said, "You can lose all your money, and if you keep your integrity, somebody will always back you and provide financing. But if you try to keep your money and you sell out your integrity, you'll never get it back." So the first thing I'm saying is do not compromise your integrity, your ethical compass. Always take the high road. Always be a value creator to others. We are rewarded in our lives and in our businesses, Thiago, in direct proportion to the quantity, the quality, and the consistency of problems we solve and opportunities we make possible for others. So that's the next thing. Don't lose your integrity. Always learn to add value to others first. Invest before asking the other side to invest. Someone always has to make the first investment in the relationship. If you invest first in the other side and it has value and validates, then reciprocity comes in. The next is always seek to grow your business, your people, yourself, the value, the services you contribute. Always try to over deliver on the expectation of the clientele, the prospects, the buyers, the customers, the members, the subscribers, the patients that you sell to. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that what you think is value, your audience thinks is value. Always know what their definition is value means, not your own, and always provide them with that, not what you think is important. Next is be committed. You grow or die. It's a statement. You grow or die as a human being. You grow or die as a leader. You grow or die as a business. You grow or die. And you grow by keeping a tight pulse on what's going on, not just in your industry, but outside. My strength, Thiago, and my ability over the last 40 years has come from the fact that I developed and I cultivated and I perfected something called funnel vision instead of tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is what happens when somebody only stays focused on their industry and what their industry does. And it's very limited. If you think about it, the concept of best practices, I could argue it's flawed. And why is it flawed? Because if everybody in the same industry has the same best practices, there's no advantage. It just becomes standard operating procedure, and it becomes something everyone has to do. And oftentimes it doesn't even produce great results. I learned that if you borrow success approaches from outside your industry, pardon me, I'm on, my office is right on an airport and there's a plane landing. If you borrow success approaches from outside your industry that no one in your industry is even familiar with, strategy, business model, value creation, competitive advantage, distribution, all kinds of things like that, you have profound advantage. If all you do is a little bit better of what everyone else is doing, you have a tiny incremental advantage. We try to get everybody I ever counsel, teach, now with this interview we're doing, to think that there's two zones you can operate in. The incremental zone, which is slow, it's arduous, it's very difficult, or in the exponential zone where everything you do has multiplied current and future residual effect. Same time, same effort, same amount of risk, time, investment, opportunity cost, effort, but you can get so much more, and you can't do it if all you know is what everybody you are competing against knows. So you need advantage. This is interesting. We teach lots of stuff. One of them is, you're going to laugh when I tell you this, but you're also going to, reflect on it. So I teach that you want to learn how to make irresistible offers, unbeatable propositions, and gain absolute ethical advantage. And people go, well, why? And I go, well, think about it. If you don't make irresistible offers, what are you making? Resistible offers. If you don't have unbeatable propositions, what do you have? Beatable propositions. If you don't have absolute advantage, what do you have? Absolute disadvantage. So you want to understand the game you're playing at a higher level of capability and mastery than the people you're playing against. You want to be able to create your own rules. My analogy is that the business world is like a 3D movie. And if you have the only pair of glasses, you have massive advantage. So the other thing you need is you need to commit to never stay static. I mean, with the world changing at the pace it's changing, you've got to monitor, you've got to examine, you've got to evaluate technological advances, psychological advances, shifts in how media works, what people are responding to, and you can't do that being in a vacuum. You have to be committed to constant, never-ending discovery, and you need to be hopelessly curious.
Wow. Wow, I like your reflections. I don't even need to ask you things, and you can only talk for some hours, and we'll enjoy it from Brazil here. Yeah. But you mentioned about not being static, and you also mentioned about developing credibility. And when you develop credibility, that's a consequence of delivering results to the companies you help in some way. And as you mentored and helped a lot of business on how to make more revenue, you probably seen a lot of trends coming and trends going. And as you're in the business for some decades now, what are the things that didn't change from the companies that worked back then and still work nowadays? And from time to time, we only forget this because we only focus on the trends, but these generate a lot of results, in your opinion.
Yeah, no, well, okay, let me give it to you. So I'll start with, and I have a lot of methodology that I have given, made proprietary, but they're things that everybody will understand. The first one is what I call revenue system optimization. And what that really means is that variability will never change. Most people are not taught that in any revenue, selling, marketing, advertising system, you have a number of components that come together to drive your results. But people don't realize each element of that component can be usually measured, quantified, improved. Let me give you an example. And they're parallel universes. Most everybody either uses ads or sales people, or they sell when people come in, if it's, if it's walking into their store on the phone. But people don't realize that within the macro, there are all these, let's call them micro or nuclear components that come together to produce the result. And each one can be improved. So the first thing is every selling approach has the equivalent of a headline. The headline in in an ad is the big the big cluster of words at the top. On a landing page or a URL, it's the cluster of words that you see when you first go there. If you have a sales organization, it's the first paragraph you utter when you interact with somebody, cold or when they call in, come in. If it's an email, it's the subject line. I can go on and on, but I have been privileged to examine, to study thousands and thousands of experiments. You can change that one factor in your selling approach and increase results, increase inquiries, increase sales, increase visits, increase opt-ins, increase phone calls, increase webinar signups, increase people who come to your event by as much as 21 times, that one factor. You can change the positioning that you use after that. And that one positioning change can be up to 100% improvement. You can change how you prove the veracity, the credibility, the truth of your proposition with either quotes or testimonials or endorsers or data analysis and another doubling of result. You can change or add a different form of a risk reversal, and that can add 40 to 50% more. You can change the addition or the expansion or replacement of bonuses and get another 50%. This is not 50% total. One can be as much as 21 times, very rarely is, but it's oftentimes 2 or 3. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One can be another 50%. One can be another 40%. One can be another 50. All of that for not one more penny of money, not one more minute of time, not one more additional person being reached. But the results are enormous. And that doesn't even count the shift you can make in getting people programmed to come back and buy more or buy higher units of sale. There are all these factors that no one teaches business owners and CEOs about, Thiago, that can multiply current and future results by orders of magnitude, and they've been available to everybody. Let me give you some examples because that'll probably be of interest to you. So, this will be, I don't know if it'll translate, but I hope it does. So years ago, by the way, the purpose of a headline or the equivalent is to communicate the biggest benefit, advantage, protection, enhancement that you, your company, are able to convey, to produce, to provide someone with in exchange for them doing whatever you want them to do. Call you, come, buy your product or whatever. So years ago, I was in the gold business, and this is long ago. And gold today is probably $2,000 an ounce, but I got started when it was only $300 an ounce. And I had a client that sold gold to people on what's called a leverage purchase, a bank finance, where they only had to put down a certain amount and the bank would finance the difference. It's like a margin-based a sale right now. And back then, the bank would finance 2/3 if you had a third that you put down. And we ran ads. The company that I went to help ran ads in all the financial newsletters, and their headline said 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold. And whenever they did that, they got enough response. They made money. Everyone got commission, profit. The company was doing okay, and they had money to do it again. But when I looked at it, I said that headline, 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold, is what we call a declaratory statement. It doesn't convey the benefit to you. It just makes a statement. And so I created 5 or 6 other headlines to test. And the winning headline that I came up with 5 times multiplied sales, but also increased the size of each sale. And I'll tell you what it was, because I've got plenty of stories to share like that will make the point. The winning change, instead of saying 2/3 bank financing on silver and gold, remember, back then, gold was $300 an ounce. Silver, by the way, was $6 an ounce, long time ago. So I changed it and said, if gold is selling for $300 an ounce, Send us just $100 an ounce and we'll buy you all the gold you want. I took the declaratory statement and I showed how it directly, profitably benefited the investor. That changed everything 5 times. We had a very large furniture company one time that had, they spent tons of money in newspapers running ads for all kinds of furniture pieces, and they got thousands of people coming to their stores. And we tested 33 different ways of greeting somebody at the front door, 33. And guess what? One of those ways tripled conversions while increasing the size of the order. And I'll tell you what that was too. I'm not going to be teasing you. It wasn't, can I help you? Because when you say that, Thiago, people go, no, I'm just looking. It was this phrase, and what ad brought you into the store today? It was a question that got the consumer to have to answer. And then the salesperson, it moved control of the conversation ethically to the salesman or woman. So they could say, oh, you're here for the 4-piece Italian bedroom set? Is the rest of your house Italian? Is it a new house? Are you replacing? And they were able to gain leadership control of the conversation in a consultative advisory way. I'll tell you another example of a variation of this. So I've helped a lot of car dealers, large ones, top Acura, Honda dealer in the world, not in just the United States, the world, top Mercedes dealer in the world till they sold to a big conglomerate. And there's 2 different stories that will show you different kinds of thinking. So the big Honda Acura dealer, the car dealer business is funny. I don't know what it's like there, but when prospective buyers come into a dealership, if the dealership is being ethical and democratic, they rotate leads, people that walk in, to each salesperson who's available. So if there's 10 salespeople, the first person walking in goes to the first salespeople, the second to the second, third to the third, et cetera. And that's what they do. And I said, well, that's very democratic, but it's probably not very strategic or pragmatic. And the guy said, what do you mean? I said, well, if the person walking in wants to buy a truck, and the person that is going to get that person is terrible at selling a truck, but someone else can sell a truck, for 10 times more profit ethically, and that's their skill set, but they don't get that person, that makes no sense. If somebody's coming in it's a first-time buyer, and they get somebody who is terrible at selling young first-time families, that makes no sense. But just align that and you'll double or redouble your sales. And they did, and they did. The other, and I think this is probably going to be like you have it there, but I don't know this. So the Mercedes dealer in the car business, a very large profit center is what's called finance and insurance. I'm going to assume it's there, but when you buy the car, then they finance it and they make a percentage of that, and they'll sell you warranty extensions, and they'll sell you all kinds of things here. And that's where they make sometimes more profit than they do on the car. Is it the same there?
Yes, it's almost the same.
Okay, so this dealer, after he came and learned from me, started looking at his performance of his people, and he found out he had 2 different people, 2 different managers in his finance and insurance department, one during the day and one that would work evenings and weekends. But he had never analyzed the profit performance that those different people delivered. Turns out the evening one was producing $1,000 a sale more profit than the daytime one, but the evening one was only getting exposed to 1/3 of the sales because most of them were coming during the day. By just reversing the work schedules and putting the one that was producing more profit during the day and the one that was producing less profit at night, he added $180,000 of profit every month to his bottom line. And I can go on and on, but it's thinking differently about everything.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Some good stories you have there. And you mentioned a lot about the importance of the headlines, right? And I just remembered a story about my life where after working in the financial markets for 7 years, I started to produce content, and I tried to sell my first digital product. It was an online course, and I didn't sell to anybody. I had like 0 clients. And I tried to sell it again, another digital course, and I sold for like 5 to 10 clients. So I didn't sell to anybody. And then I was inside a company's friend, and I was talking to him, and he gave me an idea, the idea of a headline. And he gave me this idea. I transformed this headline into this book that is called Do Mil ao Milhão. It's from 1,000 to 1,000,000. I launched this book. Now it's the best-selling book here in Brazil for a Brazilian author in 2019, 2020, 2021. And I transformed it into a digital product, and I sold more than 130 million reais, not only for this, but also for this because of the headline. So as you mentioned, it's very, very important, the headline. So thank you for this insight, man.
I'm assuming that people there know the book Think and Grow Rich, do they?
They know it. The Think Rich, Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill.
That book has sold hundreds of millions of copies. And here's the truth. When he first came out, he had a really dumb title. The first title was called How to Use Your Noodle, which is your brain, to make a boodle, which means a lot of money. That phrase sounds stupid, but back then those were real words, and they tried it and it sold nothing. He changed the title, didn't change the content, to Think and Grow Rich, and now it's sold 200 or 300 million copies. That's the power of what is called variability. By the way, Thiago, variability works on pricing too. You can change a price and double or redouble the number of buyers, sometimes a very small amount. I've seen larger prices outpull smaller. I've seen smaller outpull larger. With so many dynamics and variability, you can never say, well, tell me what to do, Jay. The only vote that counts is the markets. You ask them a question, and the data will tell you what to do, because they either will respond more or less or the same. And you'll find things out just by testing hypotheses and assumptions. You can be a marketing genius, a strategic genius, an advertising genius just by testing hypothesis.
And see, you just mentioned the book Think and Grow Rich.
You mentioned it in your book?
It's this book.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
And here in Brazil, I have my picture here with some content. Yeah. We start talking about Napoleon Hill like some years ago here. And then there is a book that in English, I think it's Outwitting the Devil.
Yes, that's his other book. Yeah, that's a cool book. Most people don't know about it.
Yes, and nobody knew about this book in Brazil. We recorded a podcast about it. Then it became the best-selling book here in Brazil, and it's there for almost 200 weeks. And that's how we got in contact with the foundation of Napoleon Hill. And I hope we have some books from you also here as well. And let me ask you something for the cousins here in Brazil. Is there any book that we can gift Brazilians here, like in a digital way or something from this podcast?
Yeah, I've got a book. I mean, you have to translate it, but I got a great book. I'll tell you the books that I have created that are significant.
How many books did you write?
I have 12 that exist. I have 4 that are being completed as we speak. But the ones that exist that are the most important, one of them we sold 72,000 copies of for $377 a copy 30 years ago. It was called Money Making Secrets of a Marketing Genius. Then we have one that is fabulous. Here it's called Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got. And that may or may not be published there. I have one that is fabulous, and we wrote it originally for the 2008 downturn, and it's a fabulous book. It's called The Sticking Point Solutions, and it probably is not available, and I would be happy letting you translate it. It has the 9 most frequent ways businesses unknowingly get stuck and that limits their performance, their success, their profitability, their prosperity, and their growth, and how to get unstuck. But it also challenges successful companies because, Thiago, a lot of successful companies are very proud that their growth is above and beyond norm or industry standards, but they don't realize the same effort, time, investment, market access could be producing a lot more result now and in the future. So we challenge people to do a reality check, because even successful companies could literally be successfully stuck and accepting a far lesser result than the opportunity, effort, and investment and everything else could deliver to them. But yeah, I mean, why don't you find out which book is not published there, and I'll give you the text of it. You can translate it. You can freely give it to as many people as want. And these are full blown books. They most of them. One of them has 336 case study examples. So it is impossible not to be able to see how to directly apply a strategy or concept or an approach or a method or a tactic to your business. And the good news, these methods have produced $30 billion of profit increases on a worldwide basis for companies in over 1,000 industries. So they work in almost every place they've ever been applied. Large companies, small companies, doesn't matter size, scope, type, sophisticated, not, technology companies, manufacturing, retail, wholesale, professional services, distribution, anything. If you apply these lessons, they will work for anybody, and they're not that hard to understand.
Okay, so I'll leave a link here in the description of this podcast of a page we'll create from now to the date we are posting this video. Okay? And let me do something. You created a lot of very successful marketing strategies for your partners and the business you have helped so far. But for you, what was the most successful marketing strategy that you built that generated the most results for a single company?
Well, geez, it's very hard. I think that when I came up with the 3-way to grow a business model, that transformed almost everybody's thinking, and it changed Tony Robbins' whole business. And now he teaches it, and he gives me credit for it, but he teaches it at all his business trainings, and he's built his whole business on it. So the concept behind that is real simple, but most people don't understand the power of it. The concept is that there are people think there's a myriad, an unimaginable number of ways to grow a business. In truth, there's a lot of tactics, Thiago, but there's only 3 major ways and 3 advanced ways. The major ways are you increase the number of buyers, clients, customers, patients, and most people stop there. And that's the most expensive, the hardest, the slowest, the least profitable. The second is you increase ethically, operative word is ethically, the size of the transaction. And in doing so, you multiply the profit per transaction. And the third is you increase the frequency or the utility of purchase, meaning you get them to buy more things more often, longer, i.e. lifetime value, because no one understood lifetime value till I started teaching it. And no one understood the concept of allowable acquisition cost, which is a little bit more sophisticated, which I can explain. But I'm just saying, so what people don't realize, we used to do, and I can get you a slide for it, you might have it. We would show a person that if you had a business, and we'll take a hypothetical, let's see if I can explain this, and maybe in the notes you can show a graphic. If you have a business that has, here's the 3, you go draw something like this, draw a long ways, 4 boxes, 3 down, 4 across, 3 down. On the left side, first box is the number of buyers a customer has active. On the second box is the size of each average sale. On the third box to the right is how often they buy every year. On the fourth box is extending the numbers. So we would take an example, Thiago, of a company that had 1,000 buyers. So the first box at the top on the left, 1,000. And those buyers were buying twice a year. So the second box is 2. And the average purchase, well, actually do it opposite. The first purchase, just put 100 in the second box and 2 times. That's a little easier. 1,000 people buying $100 twice a year. And then you multiply it. So 1,000 times 100 times 2 is a $200,000 business. Then right underneath it, across, we'd say, what happens if you increase those numbers a mere 10%? The 1,000 becomes 1,100 buyers. The $100 becomes 110, and the 2 times a year becomes 2.2. So it's only a 10% increase. But when you multiply it out, the total is not 10%, it's 33.33%. So you're seeing how to put the power of geometry to bear. Now, if you double those numbers, do the next line below. If 1,000 became 2,000, if 100 became 200, and if 2 became 4, it's not double, it's 800% increase. And at those levels, the profit is outsized to the revenue because you have a lot of fixed costs. And what we try to teach people, and what was the biggest breakthrough for me, and I did it in the gold business, I did it in the newsletter business, I did it in the information selling, education, training business, I did it in the software business, I did it in the cosmetic surgery business, I did it in every business I've ever been able to do, was say, don't grow your business incrementally, grow it exponentially by working on the geometry of the business. And in each of those 3 categories, we created about 40 different ways to do it. Now, there is one more level, and this is advanced 3 ways. There's 3 advanced ways to grow a business. This is all working on the geometry. Every year you penetrate one more market or one more niche or one more country. Every year you add one more product or service, because that can, and by the way, this is going to be a little hard to understand, but when you add another product or service, it gives you 3 powerful profit advantages. One, if it's a modest one, it gives you a lead generator that can self-liquidate. You can start attracting people with an easier way to start a relationship, or it can be gratis, free. Number 2, you can add it as a bonus or a component to multiply the size of each sale and more profitable. Number 3, it can be a purchase extension that will multiply the lifetime value. So number 1 thing in advanced, you penetrate a new market every year. Number 2 is you introduce at least one new product or service, and you don't have to own it. You can get the rights to it. You can joint venture with it, do all kinds of things, get a license on it. Number 3 is you acquire every year at least one business in either the same field, or you buy businesses that people selling things people buy before they buy your product, at the same time as your product, after they buy your product, even instead of buying your product. What does that mean? Think of this. If you had a company, Thiago, that sold a supplement for weight loss, and you're very good at it, and you're running ads, and you get all these supplement buyers, when you do the analysis, what you learn about weight loss buyers are 2 things. Number 1, they stick with any one thing for a short period, and then they jump to another and another, and oftentimes they do multiple things at the same time. So if you had a business that was attracting supplement buyers for weight loss, you could buy a company that sold a different supplement, and you could offer that to your supplement buyers. When they stop buying from you, it'd probably get a whole nother cycle of buying. But that's only one thing. People who buy supplements don't just buy supplements. They buy portion control food, Jenny Craig Weight Watchers. They join gyms. They have personal trainers. They have virtual group trainers. They buy equipment. They buy recipes. You could compete against yourself. And because you've got a sunk cost in acquiring that first buyer, it costs you nothing more to extend the value, the profitability. And when you think that expansive way, that's how I've gotten companies to grow 10, 20, 100 times over with almost no investment or risk. I hope that's not too abstract for you.
No, that's perfect. And I would like to receive this slide after this conversation. I tried to draw it here in my sheet.
I'll send it to you. It's really powerful. When you go, wow, that is so simple, but it's working on the geometry. And the same thing when I was telling you all the different components in an ad or a sales approach. Each one of those, you increase each factor by 10%. It's not 10%, it's 10. So think about this. 10 plus 10 plus 10, Thiago, is 30, right? 10 plus 10 plus 10. But what's 10 times 10 times 10?
It's 8,000.
Yeah, big difference.
Yes, a lot. And you mentioned about your books. You mentioned a very good title, a very, very good title. The Money Secrets of a Marketing Genius. And I'm very curious about that. Like, what are the money secrets of a marketing genius? I mean, what is the biggest secret of them all? The one secret that will change my business, my perspective, my results only by knowing it and applying it like on the following week?
Yeah, well, I'm known for about five. I've got 90 different categories of performance explosion that I've created over my career, but there's 3 or 4 or 5. And I've already talked about the 3 ways to grow a business, but the other one that I'm known for is called the Power Parthenon of geometric business growth. The premise is really simple. If you look at 95% of all businesses, large or small, they generate the majority of their business, their revenue, their sales, their buyers from one single approach or source. If they're reasonably sophisticated, it might be advertising, online, radio, television, newspapers. If they have a sales force, it could be salespeople calling on doors. They might have franchisees. They might have distributors. I'm sorry I don't have a model, but I have a concept that I call the diving board versus the Parthenon. If you can imagine a diving board like this, and the support of the diving board is what we would call the driver, the one source that's generating revenue. And then the board is the revenue. A diving board is not a propellant. It is a propellant to going up temporarily as you go plummeting down to earth, but it isn't a sustaining upward springboard. It's only temporary. Most people that get all their business from one source, if anything goes wrong, if the Facebook algorithm changes, or if your iPhone changes, or if too many people are bidding and the cost goes up, or anything happens, you're screwed. You're in trouble. We get every one of my clients and everyone I ever train to build their business like the Parthenon in Greece with lots of different revenue pillars. Because if the first pillar is driving all the business you've got now, and you can add 8 or 9 additional sources, and each one of those additional ones only produces 10 or 15% more business, it's the same thing, 10, not plus 10, 10 times 10 times 10, and it's explosive. And most people don't. Let me give you the simplest. About half the smaller businesses that you will ever meet, they get the majority of their business from word of mouth or referral. And that's a reactive concept. It's a great honor because it means they do a good enough job that people tell other people, but it comes episodically, it comes erratically, it doesn't come consistently. It's a terrible way to build a business. Well, we have studied over 1,000 industries, and I've uncovered 125 separate strategies, systems for generating no cost, high value referral clientele. And yet most people whose whole business comes from referrals, they don't even have one referral strategy in place, which makes no sense because a referral generated buyer, Thiago, they buy faster, they negotiate less, they buy more, they buy longer, they buy more things, they're more enjoyable to deal with, they cost nothing. And oh, yes, they refer more people. And yet most people just reactively wait. If you're getting all your businesses from referral or word of mouth with not one system, and you only put 3 or 4 systems in, that could double, redouble again your referral business, which is high profit. But people don't think very logically. So you ask me a concept. It's called the Power Parthenon. And it takes whatever you depend on to drive your business. And first thing it does is maximize that. By the way, this is good. I'm ADD, so I'm going to be a little bit frustrating to you. If I were working with your business or anyone, we do what we call divide and conquer. We break the business into 2 functions: maximize and multiply. Maximize means if you look at everything that business is doing to sell, to market, to attract prospects, convert them, sell them, upsell them, resell them, downsell them, all those things, 95% are underperforming the potential. So we go through everything they're doing now, even if I don't think it's the best thing they should be doing, and we make it better, like changing headlines or changing offers or changing risk reversal or adding bonuses. And that throws off a lot more profit that they can then use to add new things they weren't doing. So you make the things they're doing better, and we use the profit that enhancement produces to do other things. So back to the ranch. So my Power Parthenon is very well known because it forces people to add many more sources: referral sources, sales force sources, co-branding sources, recommended provider sources, PR sources, all these things that happen. 2 things happen. They give you the ability to penetrate segments of markets you do not normally reach with your main source, but they also overlap. And when people get impacted many different times in many different ways, it's that statement, 21 touches to get a sale. It is based on a military concept. The military concept is called force multiplier effect. And in a nutshell, what that means is if you, Thiago, and I were at war with each other and I wanted to win, here's how I would do it. First thing I would do is destroy all your infrastructure, your communications towers, your radio, telephone, cell towers, internet. Then I'd get your other communication, TV, newspaper. Then I would knock out your roads, your harbors, your rails, your airports. Then I would probably send then I would bomb you. Then I would do surface to air missiles. Then I would do attack drones. Then I would maybe, if I had to, send tanks. And lastly, I would send infantry. And I wouldn't care which one of those actions delivered the final victory for me. I just want one of them to do that. And it's a mindset that I've taught entrepreneurs worldwide. And when they do it, it gives them such an elevated boost because they reach their market in so many more ways than their competitor. One of the things we teach, and it's not what I'm known for, but it is a byproduct. You want to be able to gain absolute ethical advantage over your competitor. You want to be able to outthink, out strategize, out market, out advertise, outsell, out distribute, out value create, out promote, out what's the word I would say? I'm losing I haven't said this for a long time. Outperform, out earn, and out succeed everyone else. And you can't do it doing what they do the same way they do it. It's that simple.
Wow. I remember when I was in LA, I was talking to Howard Marks and I asked him how to beat the market. And he answered something similar. He said, you need to outthink the other investors. And it's much similar. But when I think about that, I receive a simple question for the majority of the people, but for me, it's maybe the hardest question to answer. That is when someone asks me, how much can we get from investing in the stock market? It's a simple question, but it's very hard to answer, especially to someone who never invested in the stock market before. And I have one of those simple questions, but with maybe profound answers. And I want to hear from you what your profound answer could be for this simple but very important question for maybe all Brazilians trying to live a better life. Jay, how to get rich?
You're setting me up for something. I have a book that I'm doing with somebody else here, and the premise is just that. It's the best way and the safest way that somebody can get rich. And I have my expertise tends to be in business, entrepreneurship, commercial type endeavors that provide product services to consumers or businesses. But the name of the book, I think I told you this beforehand, but I'll explain it. The book is called Creating Business Wealth Without Risk. And the subtitle is called How to Earn the Income of a Lifetime Every 3 years. And the premise is this: many people try to start a business from scratch. And I don't know about Brazil, but here in the States, there's a 1 in 20 first-year success rate and a 1 in 10 5-year enduring success rate, meaning that 5% success, 95% failure in year 1, 90% failure in year 5. So if that's the case, it's so much easier to get control of a business that has already been validated, but is tremendously underperforming its capability. And there are about 200 ways in the States, and I would think at least 50 of them would apply there, that you can get control of it without using any or much of your own capital. And you get control of an underperforming business. And there are many great ways to do it. And it can be low risk, no risk, very, very, very low or no investment on your part. And then you use any or many of the 90 methods I've got to massively multiply the earnings. You buy it for this, you multiply the earnings so that it's worth not just more money, but the multiple grows up a lot. Then you sell it and you keep doing it over and over again. So that's the first way. If you own a business, rather than, you mentioned this earlier, rather than growing it just purely, I think we were talking about this, just purely by conventional growth, marketing, selling, things like that. While you do that, you can keep acquiring other related businesses, other businesses people buy products from before, after, at the same time as yours. And that can rapidly multiply the wealth that you create. You can add one more profit center and it could double the value. I have, as an example, just to make a fascinating point, I have interest in the United States in 3 dental masterminds, and they're all focused on teaching general dentists how to add implant surgery as a sub-practice. Now, why would they want to do that? The average dentist here makes about $300,000. But the average dentist sends about $500,000 of implant work out to oral surgeons, endodontists. If they learn to keep that implant surgery themselves, it's about 80% or 90% profit. So another $400,000 or $500,000, that's 90% profit, is another $350,000, over double what you were making. That's the first thing. Now you have this income. What do you do with it? You can hire associates to leverage you. You can buy other practices with the cash flow. You can buy real estate with it. But that's not the only thing. By adding that additional $350,000, it just increased the asset value, the net worth of your practice by another $1,500,000 when you sell it. There are all kinds of ways to do those kind of equivalents, and most people don't teach it. And I think you should be teaching that to them because they're safe, they're easy, they're almost infallible, and most people don't understand it. So the few people that learn it can probably do wonders with it.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you think they're a little bit too complex for someone starting out? I mean, if I was starting just today, I'm like at 18 years old, I want to get rich. Like, what is the direction that I should aim for?
Yeah, well, stop. If you're going to buy assets, if it's a business, you work hard for the business or you figure out how to make the business work hard for you. So the first thing is you turn one-time buyers into ongoing buyers because that gives you predictable income. As soon as you get enough income, you bring people in to run it so you can do the highest yielding things, which is strategic thinking and making deals. But, if you're going to start a business from scratch, same time effort, you start one that has the highest repetitive, ongoing, recurring type of a buyer so that you can build value, predictable income, and then you know how to use that income for other purposes. Marketing is probably the greatest income and wealth creator you could master. Strategy is also, if you don't want to get into sophistication, then you say, I'm only going to, you're not going to get wealthy. I mean, you teach investment. And right now, the investment market here is very, very dicey. You probably read the news about what just happened in the crypto space yesterday. And I happen to have one of my clients, and I'm not active in the crypto. He's got a diverse business, but he happened to have been bailed out by them, and I don't think they closed yet. So I think it's very tenuous. But we have, my wife and I, not main part of our investment portfolio, but we had $1 million, had past tense, $1 million in crypto, a few days ago. Now we don't. I think we have maybe, $65,000 in crypto. So I think that, there's lots of things. I used to teach people how to, the concept of real estate, flipping real estate. That must be popular there, or it must have been, right?
It's more popular in the US than it is in Brazil.
Well, but you can flip assets and access too. We used to teach how to get control of passive income, how to go to businesses that didn't have any of the things we're talking about, and instead of trying to teach it as a consultant, just doing it for them and getting a permanent part of all that increased profit forever and creating all kinds of multiple income streams from all kinds of things that worked for you when you weren't doing it. I want to give you the answer you want. First answer is, if you're going to go into a business that's going to have high repetitiveness, because you do something once, you get paid for it over and over when they buy something over and over again. Go into a business that has, that if you learn marketing, if you learn strategy, don't use it for something small. We used to do these huge seminars, and people would come up and ask me how to use, at the end, they'd have Q&A, and they'd say, well, I learned all this, but how do I use it to grow my barbershop? Barbershop is a hair cutter for men. And I'd say, well, I can tell you, but why would you want to go from making 60,000 to maybe 90 if the same knowledge could be applied to something that could teach you how to make $1 million or 2 million, and it wouldn't take any longer? So I think it's choose to play where the rewards are the highest, and try to focus. There's a famous copywriter that used to be alive here. He's dead. And he used to tell a great story, which I love. And I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'll see if it's not inappropriate. I just don't know if it's the right message. But he used to do an exercise, Thiago. He'd say, okay, Thiago, you and I are going to go, we're going to have, we would do this to the whole audience. We're going to open up a restaurant in Los Angeles, anywhere you want, any kind of restaurant you want, any scenario you want. What's the one advantage you would want over everyone? And he'd go around the room and they'd say, oh, I want the only McDonald's, or I want the only restaurant at the intersection of 5 highways, or I want the only subway or whatever. And he'd go, fine, you can have it, you can have it, you can have it. And then he'd say, okay, you all done? He'd say, let me tell you what I want. I want a starving crowd. And I think it's important to go into businesses where there either is existing or evidently emerging demand. Because if you go into, I mean, there are certain businesses that if they're not dying, they're mature. And if you're going to go into those, you got to get great acquisitions and then you got to use them. We've gone into many businesses that were stale and used them as lead generators for something else. So, you go into this, for example, I'll just give you a simple concept. I don't know if a lot of people in Brazil own their own homes or not. In the United States, they do. And if you study, as I did years ago, home improvement are the people selling everything from kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, closet remodeling, carpeting, roofing, landscaping, garage door, driveway. What you will find is when somebody does their first remodeling, and it's usually the kitchen because that's a big part of most lifestyles here in the United States, they get it done and the kitchen looks fabulous. But then they start looking at the rest of the house and it looks old and ugly. So then they do the bathrooms. And now the bathrooms look great. The kitchen looks great, but the living room and the closets look terrible. So they do those. Now the inside looks good. And then they're driving home and they come into the driveway and it looks terrible. So they do the driveway. Then they do the garage. Then they do the roof. Then they do the landscaping. But most of the people who sell home improvement only do one of those functions. I started getting people to work with each other to use their leads back and forth because no one's thought about that. And they started making a fortune. You might only do the kitchen and that's all you do. But if I had access to not just your buyers, but the people who were trying to buy from you, because they probably bought from somebody, they're a great source of me selling my bathroom remodeling or my roof remodeling or my driveway remodeling. And it's just thinking much more strategically.
See, the starving crowd is one of the best things I've heard recently. It's better than a good location and a good everything. That's a very, very good point. And Abraham, let me ask you something. Do you have faith in something? I mean, you traveled a lot. You talked to a lot of people. You're a very intelligent guy. You probably give a lot of thought about this. Do you have faith in something?
I have faith in the wonderment of human beings. I have faith in the fact that most people, I think, are focused on the wrong thing, that they're trying to get an end result. They think that making a lot of money alone is going to transform the quality of their life. And the ones that get there for that reason are, it's unsatisfying. I have faith in the fact that the process of interacting is the most important thing. This conversation we are having through you to your audience is the best thing about life. I have faith in the fact that if you live your life with the understanding, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner, professional, whether you're husband, wife, father, mother, parent, whatever it is, if you commit that every time you interact and have any kind of connection with anybody else for any reason, your goal is to make their life better off because you were in it, that opens up one of the most fulfilling and rewarding aspect. I mean, it just makes life worth living. I was born one religion. I'm not as religious, but I believe in living a life of respect. I think all human beings, no matter size, type, prosperity, or lack thereof, every human being has relevancy, has significance, deserves respect, importance. And I think if you appreciate every human being, it's wonderful. I also believe that no two people are ever having the same experience at the same time. You and I are having a discussion. hundreds, thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of people hopefully are watching or listening. They're hearing what I'm saying translated through you, which is good, and you're a great advocate, but your words may be divined and defined differently based on their experiences, their education, everything else. So I believe that our job is to try to appreciate, understand, respect, and acknowledge how many different realities everyone else is having, and appreciate it. I mean, I got a lot of beliefs because I've been influenced. One of the things that I've been blessed, I've helped over 300 of the top experts in the world. I helped Stephen M. R. Covey, Tony, I mean, all these experts in all kinds of ways. And none of them came to me, Thiago, for help with their methodology. They came for help to elevate its stature, to command more value in the eyes of the market, to get more price, raise their price, to create other services. But they had to give me a compressed understanding of their belief system or their philosophy or their ideology or methodology. So I'm here talking to you with this enormous integrated understanding of things. I also believe most people don't realize all the ways they can be more impactful in their job promotion, impactful in their business. There's all these soft skills. You might teach them, you might not. We've never talked about this. There's things you can do that will transform your impact. One is how you are seen by others. There's ways to change your image in people's eyes, how you are heard with voice, tonality, listening, productivity, collaboration. There's all these things that nobody teaches anybody that give you enormous successful, higher probability and outcome. And I've studied all these in the years I've done it. And so it's hard to give you the right answers you may be seeking, but I hope even if I'm giving you different answers, they have some value to the people watching, listening, and they have some to you, and they help people think differently.
You talked about loving the others even though they have prosperity or the lack of it. And I heard a lot of people with different opinions about this, because some people think the human beings were born to be prosperous, and some of them makes a lot of mistakes, and that's why they're poor. Other people believe we were born to be poor, and making different things we can be prosperous. Do you think we are born to prosper? Do you think
I think everybody, but I do believe prosperity is a relative term. It means different things to different people, and it is denominated in different forms, some monetary, some in other forms that are intangible. But I think the reason more people don't achieve more economic success is they don't have faith in themselves. They don't have anyone that cares enough to support them. I used to teach the concept of greatness, Thiago, and this might be a really interesting concept for people to think about. My premise was every human being, with very few exceptions, was brought into this world ingrained in their DNA the desire to be great at everything they do. Nobody wants to be mediocre. You don't want to be a mediocre worker. You don't want to be a mediocre husband, wife, lover, parent. You don't want to have a mediocre life. You don't want to be mediocre at anything. And yet most people end up, frankly, I don't know about Brazil, but they're mediocre. And you ask why. And you could say, well, they don't care. I don't believe that. I believe people are mediocre and don't reap the greatness that is available to them in every facet of their life: financial, career, health, life, happiness, relationship, romance, sex, parenting, anything you want, because nobody helps them see how to get there. So the first thing is, if you don't know there's about 8 facets that if you want to get into it, between all these things, health, relationship, career, finance, all these things. So if you break one apart and say, okay, I'm not where I want to be. First thing is you got to understand, well, where do you want to be? and why? And you got to have an answer. And when you get an answer, you got to say, okay, here's where I am. Here's where I want to be. What are the people that are there doing differently? Mindset, actions. Where's the gap? Okay, here's the gap. What's the safest way to get from here to there, or at least somewhere up here? And normally nobody knows how to do that. And there's two ways to do it. You can try to be a pole vaulter and try to be an Olympic medal winner the first time you do it and fail miserably, or you can find, we call it a switchback, the way that most people walk up a mountain safely without having to be a climber. So then after you figure out where you want to be, what the gap is, how you're going to get there safely, most people, the first time they try to do anything different than the way they have done it, they fail miserably. And the analogy I would use is a little child learning to talk, walk, eat, poop, ride a bike. They're terrible. And if they are left to that first experience, they will never grow. So they're lucky. They have parents. They have nannies. They have people that are there to support them, to believe in them, to pick them up, to point them in the right direction, to tell them that's great, even when they go, oh, it sounds great. And when they miss the toilet, that's great. But we don't always have people to believe in us. So we need to find someone to believe in us and hold us to a high enough commitment until we gain momentum and proficiency. But I think there's nobody out there except for maybe people who have been, they have acts of God, they have mental, something has happened that is not normal. There's nobody I've ever met who can't achieve a significant amount more in any way they want. I believe this. Most people can transcend and transform any facet of their life with two things. There's a word I want to use. It's got to be a unrelenting desire. It's got to be big enough and committed enough that you're not going to let yourself down. They need the strategy. They need the knowledgeable plan, and then they've got to do it. But there's, I don't know if it's in Brazil or not. Here we have a lot of sayings. One of them is, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And the other is, how do you eat an elephant? And you go, I don't know how, one bite at a time. Most people get intimidated because they want this, they're here. And if they can't get this overnight, they give up, which is ludicrous. If you look at everybody except for occasional exception, they did it in stages and steps, and it started compounding. And most people just need someone to believe in them. They need a shortcut strategy that is safe and predictable. And they need enough faith, belief, trust in themselves to go the distance. And if they do that, there is nobody I have ever met who can't achieve significant and considerably greater success, certainly financially, whether it's in their career, in investing, in owning businesses, all of those, but also in every facet of their life, their health, their happiness, their family, their love life, their everything. And they just have to really want it badly enough and trust the right people to help them.
Wow. I totally agree with you, Jay. And Jay, while you were reflecting about this subject, I was thinking about some of my inflection points, the points in my life that I changed completely. And when I started working, I was a waiter. I was a bartender during the nights. And then I read a book, and my head exploded. I started thinking and challenging myself to thinking differently, to think with more scale, to think with a more open-minded approach. I didn't want to be the one selling hours. I wanted to be the one buying hours, scaling up, making business, getting more money, And this opened up my mind. And in your life, I'm pretty sure you weren't born this way. You probably had some inflection points in your life. Are there some inflection points that you remember right now that made you change the way you think completely and made you like grow a lot in your life from a business perspective?
Yes. And
Back then?
yeah. I'll give you the three or four that were the most significant. The first one was when I got started, I got married at age 18. I had no education. I had two children at the age of 20 and nobody cared. And I had the need of somebody 40. And the only jobs I could get back then, there were two. In the beginning, they were very low salaried. And I had one job being a low-level accountant at this big factory. And there were like five of us at a table. And the person next to me had been there literally 15 years. And he was making $50 more a month, 15 years worth of progression than I was. And this was all he had. And I thought, I don't want that to be my life. So that was the first thing. The second thing was because then I switched to only working with people that wouldn't give me a salary. They would just give me a share of whatever I created. And so I had no responsibility to work 8 to 5 any one place. So I worked many different activities at the same time because it was always commission. It was never salary. But I had the great fortune of never doing it in the same industry. And after doing it in over 10 industries, I made this profound realization that people in one industry didn't have any idea how people in other industry did things, different strategies, mindsets, marketing approaches, business models, and that concepts that seemed as common as dirt in one industry, but weren't known in another, could be applied with extraordinary success. And I started doing that, and massive things happened. Then I realized what I said. You can do something one time and you have to do it over and over again, or you can do it once and have it be a business that things keep happening over and over again. So you do something once and you get paid for it continually. Then I was introduced years ago. I worked for a bunch of people who were specialists in what I'm talking about. One of them was the Deming organization. He was the father of optimization, highest and best use, and how to get process improvement, how to make everything you did produce more now and more later. And I had to learn that to help them. And then I worked for a company that tested all kinds of variables, different ways of doing things. They would go into big retail stores, and by moving products to different parts of the shelves or different ends, they would double or half sales. And by having 3 different called SKUs, different products together versus 2, they would measure it. And I saw dramatic differences, and I learned all that. And I realized that I was a catalyst. I could go to somebody running a business and say, look, if you do it, well, stop. Then I made one more realization. In our personal lives, Thiago, our lives have for years and years been benefited by levers, fulcrums and levers. A broom is a lever. A wheelbarrow is a lever. A screwdriver is a lever. A car jack is a lever. A light switch is a lever. The button you push to open a door is a lever. A crank that opens a window is a lever. The pop top on a can of Coke or beer is a lever. These are things that let a little bit of effort produce an enormously bigger result. And then I realized when I got all this knowledge by working in all these industries, that there's all these levers that no one tells you about. There's all these levers you can use in business to make whatever you do now be worth even more tomorrow. And when I got into that, it excited me. And then I had one more realization, and this is a sad one, but it's also an inspiring one. I saw all these passionate business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs who would dedicate a whole lifetime to a business, and they wanted that lifetime dedication to produce, their retirement, their security. They wanted it to generate the wealth they were going to create, the retirement, the prosperity, the satisfaction, the asset value. And I saw that they didn't realize they were accepting a fraction of the result, the wealth, the income, the success, the satisfaction they could be getting. And I became the rest of my life has been on a mission to demonstrate to these people how much more is possible. And by the way, it can be translated to getting jobs. I've taught my son, who's in the medical field, how to get every job he's ever gone after, even if he had 100 other people that he was competing against, by using variations of the same thing. I've taught actors how to get jobs using variations of the same thing. They all translate because they are based on, and you probably understand neuroscience, how the mind works. And if you understand how decisions are made by people and how they create value, and by the way, I was going to say two other things. I didn't say this. One of the greatest insights I ever had was the concept of reason why. And I was telling somebody the other day, so I'll tell you guys, here that we have what we call wonder drugs, probably there. Penicillin was a wonder drug. It cured all kinds of bacteria diseases. Aspirin is like a over-the-counter wonder drug because it deals with a lot of things. Baking soda is a wonder product. Garlic is a wonder product. But in marketing, in business building, in human interaction, there is a concept that most people don't understand, and it's called the reason why. If you are a business, you have to be able to give somebody the reason why. Why should they buy your product or service from you, or that category of product or service? Why does your product deliver a greater result? Why should they trust you? Why should they buy today and not some other time, or not at all, or from somebody else or some other alternative? And when you master that, it gives you great power to understand how the mind works. I was thinking about something. If you want, you asked me about a book. I have lots of programs I've sold, but I had a little program that I did many years ago, one time only. And this might be fun. And if you wanted it, I'd give it to you. If you don't, you can edit this out. But I have a keynote that I used to do, and it was called On Thinking Differently. And it was a very powerful, we call it a tour de force, a very powerful presentation that shared with people that if they shift the way they look at everything, the world is sort of their oyster. They're the only one that sees all this possibility. And then seeing it and seizing it require a bridge. And I wanted to try to see if I could help people do it. So we created a little tiny program that was called Do Something Different. And it was 13 weeks, an hour a week of me explaining to people how to take one thing in their lives, not in their business, but in their lives, that they did a certain way, and to force them to do a different way. And as I recall, the first one was every human being has a protocol. They have a process they use in the morning when they get up. If they get up in the morning, assuming they work mornings, they get up, they usually go to the bathroom because, they haven't. And then they might go downstairs and have coffee, or they might take a shower, or they might read the paper, or they might check their emails. And then they would do the opposite, take a shower, get dressed. If they worked from an office, they would get in their car or the bus or the train and go to work and drive down the highway. And then at lunch, they'd go to a certain place. And I said, do something different. You got to pee or do the other thing in the morning. But other than that, if you normally start with coffee, start with a shower. If you normally start with your emails, make that last, or don't even do it at the first. If you normally drive down the highway, drive down the side streets or take the bus. Force yourself to break your what do you want to call it? The process you're stuck with, to open up new ways of feeling and seeing. And when you're driving, notice the trees and the this. And I had about 100 people I did it with, and it was really profound. None of it was business, but it was designed to force people to think differently. It's only an hour a week, but if you want it, I'll send it to you. You can translate it and give it to people. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, love to give this to people.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. It's very simple. It's only 13 hours, and it's one thing a week. And then I had all the people share how differently they felt and how many things they saw or they sensed that they never had before. And that's how you open people's mind to see their world differently, their opportunities differently, their capabilities differently.
We could leave this in the link in the description if you allow us, of course.
I'll send it to you.
We are almost coming to the 2 hours program here, and I would like to ask you for a final advice for people trying to reach success, meaning in their life, means to work smarter, to have better results, to scale more their business. I want you to give like the best advice you would like to give, and you feel from the deepest parts of your heart right now, Mr. J.R.
Well, that's good. It's a lofty request. I'll give you an integrated answer. One is, and it's not an original statement, but if you're the smartest person in any room, you're in the wrong room. You want to be in rooms with people who challenge you to think differently, be better, see possibilities. So you need to always have a support group, mastermind group, network group of people that can help you always and will not allow you to stay at a lower level than your potential deserves. Number two, there's a great quote that I love. It's from a man that died named Bob Proctor, but I love it. He said, most people in business or just in life, they struggle, Thiago, non-verbally. They don't say this, but deep down in their subconscious, they are tormented. They are constantly driven by this question. And the question, he said, they ask themselves always is, am I worthy of the goal? Can I really figure out how to get rich? Can I really make my business more successful or add net worth or sell it? Can I really, get from my current job to a much higher and more profitable and more significant one? And he said, when you realize how much more is really and readily and openly available to every human being, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner, want to start anything you want to do, an investor. He said, when you realize that, you will stop asking a question like, am I worthy of this goal? You'll ask the opposite. Is this limited goal worthy of me? Because you can achieve so very much more in your life, so much more success, so much more financial wealth, fulfillment, happiness, certainty, control. And I really challenge people because anybody can do it, but it doesn't happen just by wishing, and it doesn't happen by wanting and hoping. It happens by doing. There's a book that somebody wrote many years ago, and it was borrowed it from a quote by Einstein. The name of the book was Action. Nothing happens until something and someone moves. Nothing happens sitting contemplating. Everything happens when you move forward, when you take action. And even if the action doesn't exactly produce the result you're after, you course correct. You go back and you get help. But if you really want anything in your life that's better than what you have, you can absolutely have it if you're willing to basically take the right action, get the right knowledge, education, strategy, and stick with it.
Wow, very, very good advice. Jay, I would like to thank you so much for this talk.
My pleasure. What a privilege. Great questions.
I'm pretty sure this is not our last talk. It's very special to learn from you that has helped a lot of business to prosper during the last decades. And thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much. And how people can find you in the social networks or reach out to you or contact you?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. And we have a website that gives away lots of stuff. If anybody wants to really deal directly, they can go to jay@abraham.com. And we have abraham.com that gives away all kinds of things if they speak English, but you can give a lot of things. I'll give you some great things to give them. And, I try to be a great benefactor. Most of the people I try to help without economic gain because what I do is usually more expensive. But truthfully, if they're big enough, please tell them to contact jay@abraham.com. But otherwise, I'll give you great stuff that you can give everyone. Okay.